All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Zath line review. People seem to really enjoy the review we did before. That was the USN Heavy Cruiser line. I went around and asked people what they would like me to do next, and I got the answer of the Japanese Heavy Cruiser line. Frankly, it makes sense because along with the USN heavy cruisers, Japanese heavy cruisers were among the first ships in World of Warships. They've been here since the start. And I remember playing against people like Tedster in closed beta and just getting wrecked because I didn't understand how smoke works. And back then, there was no smoke fire penalty, so I just sat there and got myself wrecked by him in a Mogami sailing through smoke and then just laughing about it afterwards. I love you, Tedster. I love you so much. Okay, so anyways, this is the line we're talking about. So it starts at Hashidate Chikuma, Tenryu, Kuma, and then it goes to Furutaka, Aoba, Miyoko, Mogami, Ibuki, and the Zao. So what we're going to do is we'll talk a little bit about the characteristics of the line. We'll play a game in it. We'll talk about a commander build, stuff like that, and go from there, okay? So, as you can see, what Wargaming suggests about this line is the HE shell damage is pretty high, okay? The torpedo damage is pretty high, and they're relatively stealthy, okay? That's what Wargaming says about these ships. Here's what I say about these ships, okay? First of all, the big thing that a lot of people don't realize is that these guys, especially the Tenryu and the Kuma in World War II, they were designed to be destroyer leaders. In other words, they would take a group of destroyers with them and they'd go out and they'd be like the flagship of that squadron, which means that they had really good torpedo armament. Their guns were pretty much, by World War II standards, rather outdated at 140 millimeter, but that didn't matter. It was all about the torpedoes. So what that means for characteristics is these guys have good torpedoes, first of all. Okay? You have to keep that in mind. They've got torpedoes. You have to play around those. A lot of players find this out the hard way in the lower tiers, tier 3, 4, and 5, because they just don't know to expect them. At the higher tiers, torpedoes gets them killed. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But torpedoes are an important part of the Japanese heavy cruiser line. Another little bit about history. During World War II or prior to World War II, the Japanese Navy realized, the Imperial Japanese Navy realized that they could not win a fair fight necessarily against the U.S. in terms of ship production. And so instead of focusing on quantity, like the Americans did, they focused on quality. So they designed their ships to be stronger, better than their planned opponent, which was the United States Navy. So that's why they have torpedoes. That's why they've got good guns. The Japanese were also very good at lying about the armament of the ships that they were building and stuff during the 1920s under the Washington Naval Treaty and all that kind of stuff, when tonnage was limited and that sort of thing. You have ships like the Mogami launched with 155 millimeter guns, designed to just hot swap 203s in and make them a better ship in real life. So anyway, so that's why you've got the torpedoes there. The Americans, by the way, for the most part, didn't run torpedoes because they realized that was just another possibility for boom. And you know, they take a hit and then an explosion, crash, boom, burn, people die. So they've got torpedoes. The other big thing I always talk about the characteristics of the Japanese cruisers is good speed. This is something that I think a lot of people don't really take into account. Rob, I'm going to use you as an example of that. It's very easy for people to go headlong into the enemy right off the bat, and they get there quickly because they are so fast. And then they get screwed. Okay? Or they kite away from the target and they kite away too fast because of their really good speed. So that's another characteristic that's important about it. I would probably say that's probably a strength, but you know, whatever. Troll armor is another characteristic I like to talk about with these ships, especially at the higher tiers. They've got this armor scheme that you think you will penetrate and you'll citadel and stuff like that, and you don't. So I always say that this armor trolls both the user and the person shooting at it, because when I'm playing the Japanese heavy cruisers, I get citadeled quite easily, it feels. But then when other people shoot at me, you know, nothing. So we'll take a look at the armor scheme and stuff like that later. You use IJN cruisers to stealth torpedo a camping Dutch cruiser once upon a time. Absolutely. The concealment is really nice, especially towards the higher tiers. Now, Once upon a time, in the original form, it also had the ability to stealth fire. I'm going to put in here, no longer. So stealth fire meant that when you fired your guns, you were still outside of your concealment range and therefore were not detected. The Ibuki at tier 9 and the Zhao at tier 10 had these characteristics. Eventually, Wargaming decided it was toxic for players to essentially not have any counterplay and therefore removed stealth fire as an option. What they did was they made gun bloom out to a certain range, okay? And then when you're you fire your guns and the bloom goes out there, you're detected. And so they got rid of the ability to fire for free over things. Islands can block, of course, vision. Smoke can still block vision. But the idea of, I should say, open water stealth fire has been removed. Okay. Other characteristics about the line? That's mostly about it. All right, so let's talk about the strengths. Torpedoes. The torps are a big strength in my opinion. The guns are fantastic on the ship. Okay, and the speed. Those, in my opinion, are the strengths. Now let's get into the weaknesses.
One more I would say is they're very strong kiting ships.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. For characteristics, and I was gonna talk about that for kind of gameplay and stuff like that, suggestions. But yes, the features about the ships lead themselves really well to kiting gameplay. Drifton says you can still open water, stealth fire. It's just very yeah. You basically have to be sailing away from a target and fire, and there's like a 0.2 kilometer differential or something, right? That allows you to do that. So, the weaknesses, I'm gonna put armor down in the weakness because it's not dependable. You can't necessarily. You can try to angle, but you aren't guaranteed that you're gonna bounce stuff and not get citadeled and stuff like that. So it's troll armor. I'm gonna put that under weakness. The other big weakness I'm gonna put is length of the ship. The ship itself is quite long. And as a result of it being quite long, it gets very easily caught in a turnout. And so you have to be very careful when you turn out to enemies. And that's partly because of the torpedo arcs. Most ships in this line have mid to rear firing arcs for their torpedoes. I'm talking about when you get past like the tier 6 Aoba and above. The premium Atago actually has one tube that's a forward firing arc, but the others are middle, and back. So a lot of people want to get their torpedoes out. So what they do is they go broadside, they fire their torpedoes, and then they die. And then the torpedoes hit nothing. Or sometimes they hit something and they laugh. But overall, I find IJN cruisers to be good on damage, bad at affecting match outcome. So I think that does a good job of looking at their strengths and their weaknesses. Let's take a look at a sample Japanese heavy cruiser. So Japanese heavy cruiser, where in my opinion it starts to get really good. And this is where I suppose I could also put in here high points and low points. So for high points, on the tech tree, I would say the Miyoko is probably the highest point, tier for tier. So at tier 7, she brings in with her 5 turrets, that's 10 total guns, barrels, 203 millimeter. What people often forget about with these guns is that, yes, they've got really good HE. They're good at starting fires, and they're good at doing damage with HE. But their AP is no slouch either, and if you catch something broadside to you with that AP, you can absolutely smash it. So I would say Miyoko is definitely a high point in the line. Before that, we've got the tier 6 Aoba, which I would say is probably going to be another high point in the line. Caveat though, the problem with the 6 is you go from the Furutaka at 5 to 6, which used to be a bigger difference. Now it's not as much of a difference, but I would still say that's a high point. I have no problem playing Aoba. To go along with that, I love the Furutaka. Furutaka is one of my favorite ships out there too, because the Furutaka at tier 5 has incredible speed. Incredible speed. And then, of course, with the torpedoes too, you can deliver. I used to call it the fruitcake delivery service. You just go around and just shove torpedoes into people's faces. Now, you might have noticed I haven't really been writing much down beyond tier 7. Oh, also, I got to put Seabear's favorite ship out there, the Kuma. At tier 4, the Kuma is just fun. Also worth note, I forgot to mention this earlier, but the Kuma also, do I have any other ones? I think that's right. The Kuma and the Japanese cruisers in general originally did not have hydroacoustic search, but now they do. And this consumable is huge for these cruisers. It helps them go and compete against other destroyers. It also helps them with pushing areas and that sort of deal. So a lot of people at the low tiers especially don't understand how hydro works. And you can absolutely sneak up on destroyers, hydro them, and just blap them. It's a lot of fun. So Kuma is also, I would say, a pretty good high point of the line, although it's mostly for torpedoes. The guns are nice at 140 millimeter with AP, but if a battleship were to blink at you, you kind of go dead. So armor scheme. Let's take a look at the armor layout. You can see at tier 4, not much, but that would be expected. Right? It starts to change a little bit as we start getting into Tier 5. Tier 5, the Furutaka was the very first of the purpose-built heavy cruisers, and you can see the difference. You've got an armor belt right here. You also have the other armor belt at 25 millimeter. You've got a bow and stern there. The big difference, too, is now you get torpedo bulge protection. So what happens a lot of times, and this is why it's called troll armor, it's a lot of times battleship shells will hit the side plating, and they will explode in the side plating next to the armor belt, and they won't penetrate the armor belt. And so what happens then is the player now gets a torpedo protection hit result. Used to be, historically in the game, you might get an over penetration or even a full pen, but it does like near next to 0 damage. Side note, once upon a time, Wargaming had it so that if a shell hit side plating and penetrated, it did a lot of damage to ships, and so people could easily just kill ships by shooting this the torpedo bulkhead or bulge out. So, ouch. But Furutaka is where the line finally starts to show for what it was. Let's go back in history for a second. Oh no, they got rid of it entirely. Once upon a time, Furutaka looked very different. It had 6 guns, 3 single barrel turrets in the front, and 3 single barrel turrets in the rear. And Wargaming decided to get rid of that to make the Furutaka more like the Aoba. But she was a battleship disguised as a cruiser. It took forever for turrets to turn. So some of you that have been playing for a long time that you're watching, you might recognize that. Valiant Kitakami. Yes, for the Kitakami is based loosely on the Kuma hull. For the line review, I try not to talk about the premiums. We can maybe chat about that towards the end. Moving on to the Aoba, you can see same deal. We've got our nice torpedo bulge here, plus the armor belt. All right, same idea. And the ships get more and more tankier as you move up the tiers, which you would expect to see happening, right? Because you're going up in tiering, you have more potential for running into bad things. But you'll still note that the Citadel is still quite large, and it's also above water. So very easy to Citadel these ships if you catch them going sideways like that. Yeah, it's the 1930s refit of the Furutaka. Exactly, correct. That's right, Mike. But the original game had Furutaka in a painful 1920s build. All right, moving on from there, let's start talking about some of the other ships that are highlights and, in my opinion, lowlights, okay? So we're going to start with, at Tier 8, we have, where is it? Mogami. Now, I'm going to put this down as a high point as well, but I'm going to put this down as a situational, because for me, the 155s are the high point of this line, which is funny to think about, right? It's a heavy cruiser line, but you can equip 155s and you can equip 203s. Here's the 155s and here's the 203s. The 203s are objectively better if you are hunting cruisers. If you are hunting destroyers, a lot of times the 155s are considered better because you've got more barrels to fire, more hits on the destroyers that way. Your main target is battleships. Similar idea, except you're starting more fires because you're just literally slinging more HE shells at them. But there are people that still think of the Mogami as a 203 millimeter purist, and that's fine. Note the second turret does not have a good firing angle forward. And that's because what the Japanese did historically, and by the way, if anybody was curious about this, I should have mentioned this earlier. Historically, let me go back to the Miyoko for a second. Historically, what the Japanese Navy did was they put their turrets in a characteristics like this because they shared a magazine this way. And so it was a more efficient way of storing your ammo and all that good stuff. All right, anyway, back to Mogami. So Mogami switches it around, and now you've got three front-firing turrets, although the second one doesn't fire directly ahead that well, and then you've got two rear-facing turrets. One of the other things that Mogami does is it introduces a turtleback. You can see there's an armored deck slope here, so up close it's a little bit healthier, but it still can get diddled quite easily. Let me pull up the armor scheme all together, and you can see, once again, better quality armor, and you can see it 140 millimeter up here. This is the troll part of the armor again, because it absolutely can bounce battleship shells quite nicely. Or if you show too much side like this, you get citadeled, and you're just like, why me?
I know you're just showcasing the armor layout, but 155 Mogami turns it into a light cruiser.
Correct. And why is that important to mention?
Because the way you judge cruisers is caliber of guns.
Right.
203s that make it the heavy cruiser.
Exactly.
Now, I've always said this, if you are grinding through the line, go to the 203s, because guess what you've been using in the previous ships? The 203s.
Yep.
And that's what you're using for the rest of the line. 203s.
Yep.
Just stick with guns so you learn the gun characteristics better, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Now, you can move that captain on, but put a different captain in and go back to the 155s once you get out of the Mogami.
Right. Or if you're regrinding the line, you could save some XP, right, by just skipping the 203s as well. It's a bit of an irony. Wargaming recently released the light cruiser line, and the Mogami is a better light cruiser than pretty much any ship in that line. Oops. So it is what it is. Now, let's talk about low points. So I put Mogami 203 as a low point there. Honestly, to me, Mogami is in that transition between high and low. Part of it has to deal with your build for the ship. Also, worthy of mention too, if you're going to have a 155 Mogami, that captain is going to be a specific light cruiser captain. You're not going to see this captain. You're not going to put him on anything else because the 155 build layout is a little bit different. Okay, Treesock, thank you for the resub. Slideshow. Okay, the next low point is the Ibuki at tier 9. Oh my god, this ship is pain. This ship is so pain that when I originally played through this ship line, I almost considered spending the free XP to just say no. And putting you especially no, I don't spend my free XP, ever. I've only skipped, I think, 2 ships. Go ahead.
I would say Ibuki's a high skill ship.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I enjoy my Ibuki. Like, ironically, the way I learned how to open water and things, 2 ships, Ibuki and Seattle. 2 things that literally just explode if somebody shoots at it. So you learn real quick how to angle, mitigate damage, what to shoot at, situational. Like, you learn a lot just by not wanting to die.
Yes.
But you will die an awful lot until you learn, oh crap, I better start paying attention more.
Exactly. And I think that to me is the problem with Ibuki is you're now running into a lot more tier 10 games and of course nowadays super ship games. And on top of that you add all of the other things out there like carriers and subs that can distract you and pull your attention elsewhere. And to me that makes Ibuki a bit of a low point because it's just too easy to get exploded. When I first ground her, open water stealth fire was a thing. I had a small margin, but I was able to make it work, kind of. But I didn't have any impact on the battle.
But I think Cthulhu nailed it on the head. Everyone goes, "Oh my god, 155, best tier 8. It's the best tier for tier ship, right?" So you're doing all this grinding with 155, and now you go back to 203s that take forever to reload. The turrets don't turn as fast. Right. So everybody remembers, oh my God, this 155s are so great. Then you go to Ibuki, oh my God, these guns suck. And by the time you remember relearning 203s, you're to the Zao.
Right.
So you're like, oh my God, the Zao is so much better. So that's most of the reason why I say get to the 203s as fast as possible in the Mogami when you are grinding through the line the first time.
Yep.
So you stay used to these 203s.
Right. And as Cthulhu said, the Ibuki is just a Mogami with a heal. Also, Turo, dude, thank you for the gifted subs. We are now in a hype train. Oh my god. Enjoy the Stevie slideshow, everybody. Haven't played Ibuki since they changed the dispersion to Zao's dispersion. Because you went range and spotter plane at max. Right. We'll talk about build in a little bit, but I'm right there with you, Hujam. And now let's talk about the eternal test ship, the Zao. We call test ship Zao for a reason, because she just keeps getting changed. Now, recently she was buffed, which is nice. Let me put a regular camo on her.
Use that term loosely.
Yeah. So, she used to be very strong. She was, like, hugely nerfed in her HP. I think her reload as well was nerfed or something along those lines. I remember back when they had a different tier 10 ship, the Senjo. Way back when. That was pretty cool too. But anyway, the thing about Zao that's a little bit different is now she's got 4 turrets. These are triple guns, so it's 12 barrels, which is 2 more than Ibuki. Not a lot. She does have nice torpedoes though compared to Ibuki that they have farther range. You could also put the F3s on if you wanted to, which are 8-kilometer torpedoes. These are good for assassination. The only problem with Zao is by the time you get there to assassinate somebody, you're dead. So, good luck. Zao is just in a state that is frankly just not a lot of fun to play. So, I'm gonna just kind of pause for 1 second. All right, so Zao. And by the way, everybody, do me a favor. Even if you didn't get a gifted sub from Taro, please do me a favor and just say thanks to Taro. Because 690 subs? Oh my god. Amazing, dude. Thank you so much. It's hard to keep track with Zao, but I think Zao is still good. I like the ship. Yeah. All right, so let's continue on with the talk then. So I put the Zao as a low point. I wish I didn't have to. But to me, she excels in a style of gameplay that frankly just doesn't do anything. I wish it did. I really wish it did. But the problem that I have with it is it's a kiting ship. It's a stealthy ship. But when you bring in aircraft, when you bring in the proliferation of radar and other stuff, a lot of the tools that Zao has to sneak up on people are kind of gone. If you play maybe clan battle, maybe Zao is a possibility. We've seen Zao in tournaments and stuff like that, King of the Sea even. It just doesn't perform. It just doesn't perform the way that I think a lot of people want it to. Now, it does have a unique upgrade. I want to talk about this for a moment. The unique upgrade increases main battery firing range and also decreases shell dispersion. It makes it more of a sniper at long range. So, okay, fine. Now you've just said, all right, Mr. Zao player, play farther away from the battle. Have less of an impact on the battle. And I think that's kind of the problem that I run into with the Zhao. You can be aggressive with her, but it requires teamwork. It requires at least one other division mate working with you in order to make that all happen. And that's just tough. But did I miss anything? Anybody else? Or
I don't like the unique upgrade for the Zhao. I used to run it, but let's face facts. The meta is stay back. So literally cutting your range, and I'm gonna say this: the unique is +8, the range mod is +16.
Yep.
So you just lost half of a module for what? Better dispersion. The thing already is fairly accurate.
Correct.
So with it being even more accurate, it actually takes less turning for them to literally dodge your shells because they're all going in one spot.
Right.
To where dispersion doesn't bail you out to where that one homing shell hits and causes, 5 fires.
Right. Valkyrie, you're live miking, so if you could mute or just back the mic away from your
sorry.
mouth. Thank you.
Sorry.
Did I hack Wargaming? I have infinite doubloons. No, I don't. I've earned each one of these. I actually have a video on my YouTube page where I spent, God, remember how much it was, putting like $4,000 of doubloons or something on Santa containers? It's good stuff.
Yeah,
What?
and you put a dent in your doubloons.
Nope.
There's a reason his nickname is Smog.
That's right. I have all the things. I love this game. I play way too much of this game, and I have earned all the things in this game. So you note that your range, like Plum was saying, goes up to basically goes up by 1 kilometer if you choose to go with fire control range instead of the improved bridge. A lot of people though like the improved bridge because that extra kilometer is nice, but if you run spotting aircraft, which frankly you should, that does kind of make up for that a little bit. I don't know. It's kind of on either side, right? It kind of works on either side. It comes down to how you play it.
Exactly. It really comes down to person. Like if you're doing a lot of kiting, the unique is probably going to be better because you can always just slow down and reverse into them while they're speeding into you.
Yep.
To keep your range, but it's the reason I want 20 kilometers on a shimmy is I find myself more often chasing people instead of them coming at me.
Right. Right. The meta has moved to kite away, run away meta instead of charge and push meta.
If I may, Zao is actually the first ship that I broke past 200k in, and also was my first tier 10. First tier 10 cruiser. I did something in it. This was like a year ago now, which some may say is a little bit ballsy, but I brawled in Zao, and I gotta say the back torpedoes, yes, it's a curse, but it's also a very good thing to have, because when you're brawling, when you're in a brawl, you don't have to the ships pass each other. You can just ditch torps without showing that much of your butt or that much of your side. You just show a little bit of your butt just to launch torps, and then you get rid of them. Right. Of course, of course nowadays it's kind of a rare scenario that you can find yourselves in unless you're playing tier 10 brawls and cruisers are allowed in it.
This is the tough thing about the Zao is she is absolutely a very good pushing boat. It's just she's not good at pushing more than one target, right? If she's pushing into 3 or 4, she's gone before she can do anything with those torpedoes. That's the hard part.
Unless they're not paying attention. Unless they're not paying attention, which let's be honest, in World of Warships, you're kind of seeing that where some people don't pay. Like I've hard charged a flank where they weren't paying attention to me in the Iowa, and I got rid of 2 out of the 4 ships. Just because
turns into a player problem, not a ship problem.
That's what
bingo. We're just focusing on the ship.
That's what I'm saying. Like they're not paying attention. Like nowadays, it's not the case of a ship. It's the case of the player not paying attention
to a Hindenburg rushing them. Guess what? He's got torpedoes on both sides and everything's dead.
Yep.
Yeah.
right?
Now,
It doesn't mean it's a good idea.
right. So let's get back to the ship and discussion about this. Yak Diego does bring up a good point, right? Is that Wargaming decided another way to buff Zao besides giving it some hit points back recently is adding submarine surveillance consumable to the Zao. So this is a double-edged sword. It's
I
great.
just say it's a nerf.
I would agree. It's great if you think, okay, cool, I can hunt down subs now. Puddin', why is it a nerf?
Because you're going to want to get in close to the sub to do it, and this will kind of turn into a player issue. If the sub has half a brain, he's going to stay close to his fleet. While you're pushing into him, everybody's shooting you.
Right.
Like, it's a really good consumable for the end of the game where you don't have to deal with like 4 or 5 ships, but everybody sees a sub, and the first thing I want to do is kill it because it's more hated than the carrier. So
That's
they're
right.
always there. Let me just rush in. I got good concealment. I got torps. I can turn out. I can hydro this guy. I got ASW, so I don't have to be, and you're dead.
And this is the problem with again with the Zao. She's not good when pushing against multiple enemies. And early on, where's the sub? Typically, if the sub knows what they're doing, they're typically going to be close to their friends, their teammates. In which case, yes, it absolutely encourages the Zao to YOLO in and die. So it will be interesting to see. We don't have these statistics. Wargaming does, of course. What's happening to the Zao in terms of damage, XP, and win rate after this has been added. I was speaking yesterday with who was it? Sanctus, who's in the new Commonwealth light cruiser line, and cruisers, right? Because he was playing the tier 9 and was upset because the smoke fire penalty is so great he can't go and hunt down subs and stuff. And I told him, you're doing it wrong. This comes into play in the late game. This doesn't come into play, maybe sometimes, but most of the time this comes into play in the late game only. Because by that point, you've got a sub that's out by itself. And by that point, you know where the sub is, you can go and you can kill it. Because again, you're by itself. Hey, City Boar. The idea here is, for the playstyle, you always want 1v1 or better. You never want to take on 2 targets or more. You always want a 1v1 or better. It's even better if you've got multiple friends with you, right? It's always that. But the cruiser line itself really struggles with more than a 1v1.
I dare say focus fire is huge for these ships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You see one person shooting a ship, and now you add yourself to that. You're probably, depending who gets the fires first, but you're going to do more damage to the ships and possibly get more fires.
Exactly.
Right? If you notice that there are 2 ships and one's on fire, right, try to get the other one on fire and then go back to the other one the guy's shooting, because, you just burn everything. But you definitely want to focus fire with your battleships, your cruisers, who your DD's shooting.
Yep.
Like, I think that's the issue that comes into play with, this Zao's just not effective. Turns into a player thing. I want to farm a battleship. Why not just shoot the cruiser, get rid of it? Because now everybody's going to focus the battleship.
Right. So for playstyle, I put down for the next point, you want to start fires and rotate. You start a fire on a target, a battleship, whatever, try to shoot another ship. In theory, this goes along with this next part here, you are the back line, okay? You are with the battleships, even maybe a kilometer behind the battleships, which is kind of hard for a lot of people to grasp. You are not the person to go out there in the front, unless you're divisioned with somebody who's in a destroyer, or you've got somebody in your game that's communicating in a destroyer and you two are vibing. You know what I mean? If you get the vibe that they're going to smoke you when you need it, and then you're going to kill whatever destroyer they spot when it's needed, and you two can work together, fantastic. Okay? But otherwise, like say you get into a ranked battle, I'll take you guys into one in a little bit. You get into a ranked battle with your Mogami or whatever, and you're like, hey, DD, if you can smoke me in, I'll work with you, we'll kill whatever. If you don't see anything back from chat, I'm turning around. You know what I mean? I'm backing off. right? I'm going to try for the team play, but if it ain't happening, I'm going to preserve my ship and my hit point line. So you are the back line. Start fires, rotate to others. Don't be afraid to use your concealment to go dark. This is another thing that a lot of people struggle with. They think that if my guns are ready and I can shoot something, I must click the button. Trigger discipline, guys. You fire a few times, keep an eye on what's going on. If you feel like you are now the focus fire target, stop shooting. Back off. Go dark. Especially at the high tiers, heal back up again if you've got to heal. In the middle to low tiers, just wait for them to start focusing somebody else. As soon as they do, make your guns hurt again. So keep that in mind.
I dare say you don't have to be like behind the battleships. You can be like maybe a kilometer or two in front of them. You don't want to be the lead cruiser.
God, no.
Right. You can be a little bit more in front because you do have the Hydra. You do have the sub-surveillance. You can protect the battleship with those consumables. But if you're going to do this, it turns into a skill thing, possibly, of you have to have an escape route. You need to be able to get out of danger.
Right. Exactly.
Right? So you need to pay attention to where your islands are. Right. There's nothing wrong with going half speed at the start. So your DD that just wants to go kill himself spots everything to know what's going on for you to make the decisions.
Right. Now, the next thing I put down here is something that a lot of people forget about too. And that is if you know that there's a target that's pushing your flank or whatever, and you're right about the edge of your torpedo range, by all means, dump them. Because if the enemy wants to push, they're going to push into your torpedoes. That makes them even more difficult to dodge, okay? That's what Shimakaze players love. That's what you should love too. Okay, you think of these as area denial. You think of these as ways to slow the enemy down. Even if those torpedoes don't hit the target, it's going to take their eye off the ball. They're going to have to go, where are the torps? They're going to have to look for it, right? And you need to make sure that they're reacting. Takes them out of the game for a few seconds, whatever. And that could be the crucial opportunity for you to get a good hit on the target or somebody else, start a fire, etc., etc. The other thing to general playstyle for these cruisers is you are on the flanks. You don't go to the middle of the map. You go to the flank. You go to the side. You go to the edge. Whatever you want to call it. Okay. You are a flanking, kiting ship. Okay. You have to put both of those in your mindset, okay, and work your way. Yes, towards the end of the game, you can try to go to the center and stuff, but you're typically going to be on the flank. You're looking for opportunities to shoot broadsides of other cruisers, especially with your 203 millimeters with AP. It does really good damage, okay? You surprise them with it. But going along with that, you're going to be mostly playing these ships as a kiting cruiser.
Well, another strong tip for any cruiser gameplay, if you can't do the wiggle, which is get all your guns, shoot, angle back up, turn back in, do the little wiggle to get all your guns. Don't do the wiggle. Just worry about your rear two turrets and worry about surviving. Most people are not going to want to push into a Zao knowing they have 12-kilometer torps. Right? Like, if you torp something with one set, they're instantly going to be thinking, is it the Zao? Is it the DD? What the hell just torped me?
That's right. Now, what Putin is talking about with the wiggle, I talk about this a lot, and I'll show you guys in the battle that we're going to play. But the wiggle, when you're kiting away, I want you to imagine you are the enemy ship looking at the target right now, okay, at a Miyoko. The Miyoko is going to wiggle. The Miyoko is going to wiggle this way to get all of its turrets on target. You can see that the rear two are already facing the back. This third turret here, right? The third turret has a decent angle like this, and the front two can shoot too. So you're going to see an angle like this, and then it's going to wiggle back to this, right, to dodge your return fire. And then it's going to wiggle back out again to shoot, and then it's going to wiggle back like this. All right. Meanwhile, while it's doing that, if you're chasing after this guy, he's dumping his torpedoes at you. This is what makes these cruisers very strong. If they control the enemy into chasing them, okay, because now it's torpedoes, it's guns, it's pain. Miyoko excels at that because of that third turret positioning. When you start going up to the higher tiers, though, especially the Zao, that's another area where it kind of struggles, is the turret angles aren't the greatest. And so you show too much broadside in order to get your guns out, or you're kind of forced to go, not pay attention too much to your angling and stuff, and you can't wiggle as well. So you have to learn the wiggle. Shoot, go back to angled. Shoot, back to angled. You have to learn to keep doing that. Okay? While you're doing that, you're also changing your throttle speed. You're going down to half speed and whatnot so that shells fly over you and past you. Okay? That's what you need to be doing. The turret angle was buffed recently, that's correct, but it is still a little problematic, and I think part of that is just because of the nature of the ship and the way that it's modeled. Obviously, you can't have turrets that just, blow away anti-air guns every time it fires. That would be unfortunate for the anti-air gunner. So
I dare say with the Zao, I wouldn't worry about getting both front turrets. Just get the one in play that can, because it still keeps you fairly. Yeah, which still keeps you fairly angled, and you're using 3/4 of your firepower instead of just half.
Ibuki, same thing, and here Ibuki's even worse. By the way, take a look at this second turret angle. Look at that. You have to be like this to get that second turret unmasked. This is why the Ibuki suffers so much, is it shows this much side to get that turret out there. This is basically penetration angle for just about everything, and guaranteed penetration for American or whatever you want to call it. Even this is almost getting to American piercing angle. So it's just, you have to play these very, very cautiously. And like you said, for Ibuki, even I might even ignore the second and third turret and just get the first, fourth, and fifth turrets into action and just keep shooting them. All right. So, anything else for playstyle to talk about, or are we good to talk about a suggested build?
If ever I can interject.
That's why I stopped and asked.
The Zao, just to pile on to the wiggle, the cruiser wiggle. The Zao, I've noticed at least that it has a really good backfiring. You don't need to give that much in the sense of, again, side to get all guns to bear, because it has a really good, for the front turrets, really good angle backwards for fire support. Another thing is, and this is a thing that I'm starting to notice a lot more, including over this past 2 years, is that not that many people play Zao, so you can actually be a little bit more. I'm not gonna say don't go and YOLO rush and see what happens. No, don't do that. I'm saying you can be a little bit more cheeky in the Zao compared to other common ships that you may see at tier 10, because it's not as common as it used to be back when Japanese heavies used to be the line that you just had and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I'm starting to notice not that many people are using JP lines anymore. They're using Venezia, or they're using what is it? The new Japanese Yudo ships and all that sort of stuff. You can be cheeky, but you have to be cheeky in a smart way. I think that's the best way that I can say it. Yeah, I think that's an advantage you can say about the Japanese heavies, is that you don't see that many people play it as much as it used to be. So some people new players who are into the game don't know how to play against it.
I mean, yeah, so. It's tough for it, because you have a lot of those cases where people will be trying to get into the game and learn how it works and everything. Absolutely, yes.
I think what Rob just said is abuses concealment, because it does have excellent concealment.
Yeah.
So here's a suggested build for the Zao, right? It kind of shows you guys the the strengths of the ship in a sense. They suggest that you switch between AP and HE quicker, so that's why Gunfeeder is there. Priority target is very important in the ship. Remember I told you have to get an idea of how many people are shooting at you and all that kind of stuff? That's exactly where that comes into play. The third shot there, this is Superintendent. Now, on the cruisers like the Zao and Yabuki that have a heal, this is huge. It's not as important in the mid to low tier cruisers, so keep that in mind. I probably wouldn't use Superintendent in the medium to low cruisers. Anything without a heal. Concealment is king, so absolutely concealment. Adrenaline rush, why wouldn't you want quicker reloading guns? Survivability expert, even without a heal, very important to take. Why wouldn't you want more hit points so you don't die as easily? Okay. Next one up is turret traverse. Grease the gears. Your guns are great. You want to make sure that they're always keeping an eye on target, and especially when you get to the Miyoko. Yes, Miyoko. It's very easy for you to outturn your turrets, which is very, very frustrating. Outturning means when your rudder is at hard over and you're in a full turn, your turrets can't keep up. That's huge because if you're trying to shoot at something while you're turning, you actually are encouraged to stop your turn to get your guns on target, which oftentimes can get you whacked. And then finally, Yaka Diego is confused. I am not. Radio location. Why? What did I say about this playstyle? It's a kiting away ship at the start, right? You play this as a kiter. You play this in the back line. You play it on the flank. Now, halfway through the game, mid to late game, when there's fewer targets out there, that's when these ships excel, right? You want the 1v1 or better, remember. So you need radio location so that you know where the destroyers are or whatever it is that you're hunting. For the Zao especially, this part here helps you hunt the sub, because if a submarine is on the surface, radio location points to it. Why is that important too? Because you know when the sub is not on the surface, because radio location does that. If you're going this way, you get spotted, and radio location goes that way, you know that the sub is the one that spotted you, and you know the sub is the closest target to you, and you know he's underwater. And submarine surveillance works when your target is underwater. So guess what? That means you can, let me pop this down again, you can go back into your submarine surveillance, and you can start spotting that dude, right? Boom. At, 7 kilometer. Get the idea? That's how it works together, okay? Drifting chooses outnumbered instead of radio location. That's fine. That you're playing that as a predominantly kiting cruiser, and that's pretty much it. I prefer radio location because I like to know where the target is, and I'm always going to be using that. So I really do agree with a lot of this build. The only difference is, like I said, Superintendent I would drop if your captain is only staying on a low tier ship. If he's going to stay on 7 or something like that. Too much skill points for 1 or 2 ships per battle. What do you mean 1 or 2 ships per battle? Because if you ask me, outnumbered is the same problem. You're only going to use that in a certain couple of use cases. And I did a Zath chat before where I've talked about I don't like a lot of these skills that require specific things to happen to activate, because then you find yourself trying to make that happen to activate that skill. So I think radio location is just, especially in ranked, oh my god, it's so much more useful. It's so much more useful. Drifton was asking earlier, do these have the 1/6 HE penetration rule? No, they've got 1/4. So the 203s will penetrate 32 millimeters of armor right off the bat. Okay, so you don't have to worry about taking IFHE.
Its HE will pen 34 millimeters.
Yeah, right. And 32 is that magic number that you're always looking for. Now, right. Alternate skills to think about, especially at the low tiers for 3 points. I might take fill the tubes, so that my torpedoes are available quicker. I saw Yakadiego talk about eyeing the skill as one that he enjoys. Fine, you can do that if you're accustomed to using the spotter plane. That's not a bad choice. propulsion, or not propulsion, last stand. Last stand is actually really useful in the mid to low tier cruisers because they're so fast. A lot of people will oftentimes shoot behind, which means they will almost always hit your rudder. And when your rudder goes, bad things happen. You smash into islands broadside and die. So I very much think that that's a very important survivability skill. As terms of upgrades, you can see there's a couple of the coal upgrades that you can pick up on if you want to. They recommend the turret traverse upgrade instead of the aiming systems, which is very interesting. And then there's propulsion, concealment module, and then there's the range we were talking about earlier.
See, the only thing I would change for Zao, I'd drop survivability expert and go with the more depth charge damage.
Well, I know how much you love subs, so.
But it also gives a small buff to what to your AA. And then, I mean, like the problem is, what do you do with the one last point? I would just dump it into torpedo speed.
That's what I did.
But
So-
I mean, you are not talking about a ship that actually has sub surveillance. Subs now just got the option to take less damage. So, like, I mean, everything else I would stick with, you know, like the AR, turret traverse.
So you're
But-
saying you would, if you don't mind, let me go through that again. So you said you would drop survivability expert, and
The
you want to get to here, right?
No, not that one. The
Focus
one
fire
next
training.
yeah.
Okay. You could do that if your focus is mainly killing subs. Absolutely could work. Yes, the build doc did have SE for Zao, and that's the reason why I always talk about you can start by looking at the doc, and then you can decide for yourself. Okay, my focus is going to be on this instead, and you can go and play it that way. And there's nothing wrong with that. People get so like uptight about you have to follow a specific build. For me, I hate losing my rudder. This is more valuable, in my opinion, maybe than grease the gears. Or maybe I just like to sling HE and not think about switching to AP. So maybe I don't use gunfeeder. Instead, I use last stand. You have to think about how you play the game and how you play the ship. It's always important to think about that. Hell, some people might even want to do pack a punch with the Zao to make their torpedoes do more damage. Let that sink in for a second. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can play the boat.
Definitely not what I put in.
Specking to hunt subs in any ship is a weird choice. Why is that, Snow Mongoose? God, not a secondary build. Well, actually, the secondaries on the Zao are okay.
Well, it's
They're
100 millimeter Aki.
Yeah.
Aki. So yeah, if ever
Yeah.
Destroyer decides to try to charge you, which I've seen, it's an extra little bit of help
Right.
to whittle them down. So I actually just took it for the torpedo. Like I kind of invested a little bit more in the torpedoes, just because of its concealment. So it kind of like, yes, I do play it in a kiting, but if ever like there's a need to push, I do also have it set up in that format. So it's a bit of I try to keep I keep it in a 50-50 sort of thing. So it can become a kiter, but it can also, if need be, and the stars are aligned, become an aggressor.
Yes. Now, I want to mention something too. When it comes to your slot choices, maneuverability is important on any ship that you choose. 7.7 seconds of rudder shift time is kind of oof. It's okay. I usually, so for cruisers, I want under 10 seconds of rudder shift time. For destroyers, under 5, and for battleships, under 15. That's just a general, okay? So for Zao, you can see that's 7.7 with propulsion modification. Propulsion is a great skill if you're the kind of person who knows how to use the S to slow down, the S key. I see TC saying, I unmap the S key and play that way because reasons. If that's the case, you're not the only one, TC. If you are allergic to slowing down, then you might, again, this is where you have to know your playstyle better, right? You might change to the rudder shift module to get that down to 6 seconds. That allows you to wiggle so much better. And if you're always going full speed and never slowing down, you're not going to get you're not going to get much of a benefit from the propulsion. So again, it comes down to how you choose to build this ship. You see, I've got aiming systems. Cool. I didn't invest into the coal upgrades. Why? Because I just don't play the ship enough to make it worthwhile doing it. That's okay. Who Jam says, no way, propulsion is way better. If you are always hitting W 4 times and never slowing down, propulsion is doing, I dare say, next to nothing for you. So you're far better off going with rudder shift in that instance.
If I can mention propulsion, it is so funny to use it like when you just like you get the shot incoming and you're just like, oh, what a shame, I slowed down and turned hard left and you missed. I love doing that. It's so funny.
Absolutely. So I think we've gone through the build. Does anybody have any other questions or anything else they want to mention about the build before we go into an actual battle and take a look at how the ship line plays out?
Again, I still like don't get me wrong. I can understand why there's some ships that have RDF, but the thing that I've learned about RDF, because I have it on one of my ships, is you can get, if ever you're undetected, say as a DD or as a very stealthy cruiser like Sal, you can get easily triangulated by the enemy DDs to kind of stay away from you for the case of Zal, or you to get hunted down by it. So I don't understand. I don't really understand the point of it. I know that you said, oh, like in case the sun surfaces, then it just goes like whack over to the like 90 degrees to your left or right or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
What do you do when your hydro's down?
Pardon me?
What do you do when your hydro's down?
I go evasive. I keep myself on a swivel.
Right. But with that RPF, I'm spotted. I don't know what the hell it is. Oh, torps are probably going to be coming from that direction.
That's right. That's right. Okay. So this gives you so much information. It gives you so much information. It's really hard to not play with it, especially if you're in a role where you might be hunting subs or destroyers and stuff. Now, Drifton says, eye in the sky analysis. You'll note that for the Mogami, it's not effective because Mogami can't take the spotter plane. You can take it in the Zao if you want. The Zao is, you get 2 extra charges of that consumable, fine. My biggest problem was with the Zao, what am I going to give up in order to take that? That's a 2-point skill. Kind of expensive, right? Let's go to, let me pull up the Zao again. And here we go. All right, so how I would, like I said, how I would build it, I value my engine and rudder so much more than anything else. That survivability part is important to me. These skills I know I want. Okay, here's my problem. I'm now at 20 points. Where am I going to get this? I have to sacrifice priority target. I want priority target. I need to know when people are targeting me. I want radio location. I want adrenaline rush. I want superintendent for the extra heal. I want concealment expert. That leaves me with choosing survivability expert. So I'm going to give up some hit points and some survivability so I can shoot things from longer away for longer duration or more frequently. If you're good at your aim and all that kind of stuff, and this actually synergizes well with the unique upgrade because it helps with your dispersion, you could do that. You could do that. 2-point is expensive, confused. 2-point is expensive, Yaka Diego, when there are so many other skills that you are already doing by default anyways. So what do you do with the last couple? You could go for grease the gears, and then you could go back to gunfeeder if you are the kind of person that will switch back and forth a lot. If you're not the kind of person, that's not going to help you, and maybe consumable specialist helps, right? You want the actually that does jive well with Eye in the Sky, doesn't it? So maybe you go for this. You know, maybe you build it like this for your 21-pointer. Would I do double rudder on the new light cruisers. Generally, I don't think I did when I ground them out, but I like to do a lot of stop and go action. And frankly, those light cruisers, the armor sucks so much it doesn't really matter how angled you are. With the proliferation of gigantic guns, it's less important. So, anyway.
It loves islands. The Japanese like islands.
This is probably, if you really want eye in the sky, this is probably what I might do for it. Or yeah, I don't know. It could work. 3.5 second rudder shift. Yeah, it feels great until you get citadeled anyways, is what I'm kind of getting at. That's why you don't like default builds. Yeah. But to me, there's always things that you're automatically going to go for because it's important, right? My Mogami. Okay, let's take a look at her again. This is what I'm automatically going to. I'm skipping out on Superintendent. Why? Because I don't have a heal, so I'm not going to get an extra charge of heal from that. I'll get an extra sub-surveillance and hydro. If I'm playing it in ranked, that's not going to matter. So I've got, what have I got here? 19 points. No, I've got 17 here because I can do that, and that's a full 21 pointer. Where am I going to go from here with my Zao or my Mogami? This is another part of the problem with the 155 versus the 203s. If I'm doing the 203s, I might want to go for grease the gears to get the guns to turn a little bit better, right? I might choose fill the tubes to get my torpedoes off better. I'm probably not going to use top grade gunner because I'm probably going to fire for a few times and then I'm going to stop shooting, right? Wonder what give more HP, one extra heal or the 4500. You have to remember that the 4500 impacts all of the heals as well. So probably that actually, but again, it comes down to your playstyle. If you find yourself dying all the time with 2 extra charges of heal, then 1 more isn't going to help you, frankly. So where do I want to go in my Mogami? Frankly, I don't know. If I were to build this out as a 203mm boat, I might go to fill the tubes for the extra torpedo spammy. Definitely want to keep my 203s on target. And I guess I would go gunfeeder, right? So I can swap back and forth between everything. Now, if I'm running 155s, see, compass, and that's the point I'm trying to get at. If I'm running the 155s, I've got a couple of choices. The 155s, let's go back to equipment here. Switch back to this. There we go. The 155s, they don't penetrate 31. They don't penetrate 32 millimeters of armor. In ranked, not a big deal. But in randoms, that is a big deal. IFHE becomes a more interesting prospect then. And this is the problem because now, boom, there's your build. So, if you're going to do a 155 Mogami, you can't use that captain on like an Atago. It's not as helpful because IFHE hurts the fire chance, and it also doesn't really give much to your premium Japanese heavy cruisers. Top grade gunner need have enemy and standard spotting, so probably exactly. If I'm doing 155s, I could do that for traverse. I mean, I could do the same build, but I'm probably never going to switch out of the 155s. So if that's the case, I don't know, consumables, Swift fish maybe. Maybe I do that with the 155. And this actually helps you with both.
This is the importance of the Mogami. Of are you grinding through the line? You've obviously set up for the Zao because that's where the captain should end up.
Right.
And then you just dump another captain in here for the 155s. Right.
But you're going to train up somebody specific for that. So,
yeah.
Now I don't have enough skill points. I'm cheap. I'm not going to use them. So I'm probably going to go with fill the tubes here. It's ranked because that's what we're going to go with. And I want to be able to spam my torpedoes out a lot. So I'll probably go for that and cry and wish I took the grease the gears. But it is what it is. Let me take a look real quick. What is my turret traverse? 36 seconds stock. Go back to equipment, change this to the 203s. What do we go with? We actually are a little bit faster to traverse in the 203s by 6 seconds. I could speed that up a little bit more by dropping the aiming systems, but I love aiming systems. So I think I'm gonna go with just dumping the torps quicker. Let's do that. By the way, you can be wrong with your build, and that's okay too. You know, you play the game to have fun, right? And then if as time progresses you feel you don't like the way the build works, guess what, guys? You can change it. I know, it's crazy to think about. All right, let's get into a game. I'll try to demonstrate some of the characteristics of the of the high heavy cruiser mid to high tier. And there we go. All right, Dutch. Hey, thank you for the sub, dude. 46 months. Except you go boom regularly. That's correct and true. Practicing that is important. So there's some shout outs for TC as well. But thank you again for all the support, Dutch. I appreciate you, man. 46 months is incredible. Coming up on 4 years of subbing, man. That's awesome. Okay, so let's get to this game. It's Arms Race. Look, there's a sub. It's a U190. Look, we have a 156. Oh, the pain. No, whoa. No battleships.
Whoa.
There's a Congress.
I mean, technically you can count the Congress as kind of a battleship.
Bazarski is going to be funny, because he just spams AP only, so whatever. Atago is a big threat to me. Z-23 and Cossack. Cossack is going to be a big threat. Kagero, another Cossack on our team. I'd rather have the Z-23 with its Hydro, to be honest. Wow, okay. Our team is already doing the Apes Together Strong strat, so I'm going to head this direction to kind of counterplay this. Now, I talked about before the torpedo angles being sucky. Look at this. Basically, amidships, I have to show full broadside to torpedo somebody or rear. So, in general, you want to be thinking about, you know, about that. Kagero is going up. So what I want to do is I want to try to support this guy, but you notice that I'm not going like straight to this island here. I'm going off to the side a little bit more. That's important. I don't know where the enemy cruisers are yet. I know where the Congress is. Whoops. So that's good for me, right? I can plan accordingly around him. I still don't know where the Atago is, and I still don't know where the other cruiser is just yet. There's a sub to deal with. Radio location is pointing where you'd expect it early game. Bazarski. I'm seeing a Bazarski. I'm going to switch to AP, thinking I might be able to surprise him. There's the Cossack. Surprise, surprise. So that's a dead Kagero. He just doesn't know it yet. Because nobody else is supporting. Our team went the other direction. Our I-56 is already getting himself... yeah, see? Called it. But, oh, okay. Well done. He got the Cossack. That's huge, actually. That's huge. We can play this. Team needs to focus on the Z-23. Atago is near the Congress. I can be a little bit more aggressive now. The sub is just pinged over by the Bazarski. So after this island, I'm going to turn towards the heel. I desperately need the heel for our team, because our team is just kind of YOLOing in. This is the other problem these days when you play a flanking cruiser like this, right? The team YOLOs in. You play for the strategy and moving around and everything, right? And the teams just go hell with this, and then you're just like, please don't die. And you just have nowhere near as much of an impact on the game as you wanted. There goes the Pozarski, there goes the I-56, and suddenly we're down a ship. See what I was talking about? All right, Atago going broadside. Get the guns on target. Yeah, subs. Right, so why play into the subs game? The Pozarski is complaining about subs. Why play their game? Right? Congress is going to slow down, probably. And I see the Pozarski coming. And he's using Hydro, and I'm using Hydro. Remember, Pozarski shoots AP only. I'd love to have gotten the heal, but it's just not going to work out. But look at that AP damage. Slowing down a little bit. Continuing to dodge his shells. I want to encourage him to turn hard.
Main turret critically damaged.
And unfortunately, this is a situation where I'm probably only going to be able to smash into this guy and accept a trade.
Fighter destroyed.
I wish I didn't have to do that, but that's the best I can. That's the best I can accomplish in that situation. Part of the problem is he came around when I was looking at somebody else. I wasn't expecting him to show up there. Part of the other problem is I was trying to get that heal for the team, which I was able to get, but I don't know if that's going to be enough. We'll have to wait and see. Folk changing our colors. Let's go. And I did end up losing my star. Unfortunate. How did I do comparatively? Quite well. The Hipper, who unfortunately screwed up that engagement, did manage to do quite well for himself. Cossack, Kagero, Pozarski, and I-56 are the reasons I lost my star. Oh well. I-56 didn't really know how to sub. Apparently neither did theirs. But he just got himself wrecked and dead. Our Pozarski, I mean, come on. Congress and Atago just went for it. And we didn't. So, thus concludes the line review. It is a very meh line. And if you're looking for a place to start, I would look elsewhere. So, thank you very much for participating in the line review, everybody. And those of you on YouTube later, tell me what you guys think. Do you agree with my determination of the line, or do you disagree? Let us know in the comments. And we'll leave it at that.